Everybody, Nate Smoyer coming at you from Real Team Panda, host of the TechNest podcast, and got another one for you today. We're looking at Obligo. Now, I had to watch their video to know how to say it, but it's pronounced Obligo. The new standard for security deposits is zero locked up cash, full security. What is it? Well, Obligo is trying to make it easier for tenants to rent apartments or houses by getting rid of the burden of having a large security deposit. Now, as a landlord, you want the security deposit because just in case the tenant goes ape crazy on you and wants to trash the place, well, you got money to take care of the damages. However, this can be tough for some people to come up with a few $1,000s to rent a place. Now, there are some progressive cities who are saying we should allow tenants to pay in payment plans and we should force landlords to accept that. I personally am not in favor of that. I can't get behind what Obligo is doing. Let's jump right into what they're doing. So let's go through it. So what is Obligo billing authorization? It is an alternative to security deposits for the landlord to bill you for damages in a limited and secure way. So once the landlord and the tenant have both agreed that they're going to use Obligo, then only if there is damages will the landlord make a claim and be paid. And they're paid directly from Obligo, and then Obligo goes ahead and bills the tenant. And I think this is really interesting. It's already agreed upon the length of the Obligo. So if it's, for 10 or 12 months is agreed upon, as well as the total amount. Now, Obligo doesn't go into a whole lot of details about how they allow for disbursements. They do mention that if you have a big disbursement like this here, that they're going to limit the amount that can be dispersed immediately. There's also if you have, the need for payments. So if it's $500, but you only have $400 in your Obligo, it looks like Obligo is going to allow you to make payments. I don't know if there's financing fees. I don't know if there's any sort of, monthly fee for that. That would be interesting to find out. So here's the basic, simple way of how it works. First, the landlord has to send out the invitation. Now, I do think this might be a hurdle because I'm not really sure if landlords or tenants are going to gravitate towards this as a solution first. Challenging product here to build both sides. Okay, you get an offer. Okay, so now the fee is decided by the size of your Obligo. So it could be $10 a month. Could be 5, maybe 20. I'm not really so sure which one it is. And then step 3, you just set up your account. So once it's set up, the tenant pays for the Obligo, not the landlord, but the tenant. And Obligo guarantees the money back to the landlord. So this is good. And they talk about this a little bit in their video. So landlords, go to the landlord tab, watch the demo video. You can see how they are trying to position this as, hey, the tenant is the real customer, but landlords, we are keeping you secure. Okay, let me go a little bit further into the about section. They are a financial company founded by cybersecurity and data science experts. So I believe that the reason they're saying this is they want your trust that the financial connection here for receiving your deposits and for the tenant to give the ability for the landlord to pull out that deposit is going to be safe and secure. So I think that's very smart. And then obviously they have touting their partners here below to show that, hey, we work with the finance people. Now, if you go to the contact page, very simple type of contact page, and you can sign up to make sure you get on the any growth announcements. Fancy little email, like I got one here that says you're awesome, and apparently they're getting a lot of email traffic at the moment, so don't expect to be talking to anyone. Now, it's always worthwhile to visit the frequently asked questions, and probably the most important is Obligo available in my city? Currently, the answer is likely no. They are in a closed beta program with select landlords. I wonder if they're working with individual landlords, larger companies, people with 1 property, 10 property. That would be interesting to me. It doesn't seem like they're working with too many. This is just a quick look at the sign-in screen. As you can see, looks like they're probably working with people in New York. They have a high focus on New York. Now, they're not working with too many people, as you can see from the traffic. They're not exactly overloaded with traffic. They're not doing much paid search, although I did find some indications that they were previously doing some paid search. I don't see paid search running right now. I'm not so sure what people would search for. This is not a very common product. So this is going to require quite a bit of demand generation. They have been able to secure some press especially when they raise some money. We'll talk about that a little bit later, the 2 rounds of funding that they've gone through. Let's just jump right quick here into the estimated traffic that SEM Rush is saying that Obligo is getting. You can see that they're just under 10,000 visits a month. There are likely some landlords and tenants popping in and out of there, signing things up. Low bounce rates. The people using the site are very interested in what they got going on here. And here's the difference here, right? You have tenant My Obligo and then My Obligo. So looks like they're focusing on advertising to the tenants, getting the tenants to tell the landlord about it, and trying to do some pull through that way, what's called a pull through marketing strategy. But it's interesting to me that the landlord has to send the invitation to the tenant if they're advertising directly to the tenant first. So I'm wondering how they're going to go back and forth on that. It'll be fun to watch that, and just some display advertising. Here are some things that you can see that they're running. New York City, the new multifamily standard. So this looks like a landlord-oriented ad. This looks like a tenant-oriented ad. They're also not just sticking to the U.S. Looks like we got a few other countries here worked in. Jumping over to their Facebook page, this gives you an idea of how they see themselves and the messaging that they're putting out there. So they've done a decent job of building up a little bit of an audience on Facebook, trying to keep that somewhat active. You can see that they're showing properties. It looks like what they're trying to do is show the properties that are eligible for people to move in deposit free. This makes a lot of sense. If you go to the property management companies that have a large portfolio, then now you have someone else advertising your properties, and you really have an edge when you advertise your properties. Again, it does cost the tenant money on a monthly basis, but if you're looking at $120 a year, some people might look at it and say, hey, but they're not taking all my money, or they're not taking $2,000 from me. They're taking $120, $10 a month, and that's going to be worth it. Here's a few ads that they're running. As you can see, again, they are focused on New York City. We got some Brooklyn, Midtown, right? Large and cozy. Again, another one, very specific buildings. It'd be interesting. I'd love to see is Obligo and Rent Logic work together in some capacity with Rent Logic's work on grading New York City apartment buildings. This is actually one of the landing pages that they're advertising. So these ads that they were running on Facebook are sending people directly to the tenants page. Not exactly, in my opinion, a compelling message for tenants. This is actually somewhat confusing. Seems like it's geared towards the property owner investor, even though it says tenants. So I would, somewhere along the way, it's got to say, save $2,000 on the front end, or hold your money, or no deposit required. Here's how how I would take the messaging. All right, a little bit on Obligo, and we'll wrap up here. So like I mentioned, they have raised some money. They got some support behind them. So you can see they had a seed round led by 83 North, and then they did a debt financing with Viola Credit. All in all, in the 2 rounds of funding, they've raised about $7 million. They've been active since 2017, but they have 2 co-founders here, and it looks like they're still operating at under 10 employees. So that is Obligo, a very interesting solution. I know that cities have been talking about how do they combat the rise of rent prices, which means the rise of security deposits required, and it does cross into the thousands of dollars, even if it's in the rural areas and not in cities like New York. I think it's an interesting concept here. We'll see how well it does in time. So anyway, hey, if you're actually one of the people working on the closed beta, I'd love to talk to you and hear more about what your experience is. Also, I want to hear more from landlords. Would you use something like this? Would you offer this to tenant? Do you see this as an advantage? Anyway, that's it for this week. We'll come back next week with another one. Thanks.